After January 15th, 2020, you became aware of a video recording that captured the murder of Charles McCormick. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you've had an opportunity during the pendency of your case and the discovery to see that recording.
Yes.
Correct.
On July 28, 2025, a Florida courtroom turned into the center of national attention. Cameras flashed, journalists scribbled notes, and the world watched as a father, known on the streets as a certified hustler, sat just feet away from his son. He wasn't there to support him. He wasn't there to beg the court for mercy. He was there to testify against him. That son was Hakeem Ksoo Robinson, a 26-year-old Jacksonville rapper whose name carried weight far beyond music. And his father, Abdul Blue Robinson Sr., was about to destroy him with a single sentence. That's him. He's the shooter.
Now, sitting here today, you realize that you are testifying against not only co-defendants, but family members.
Yes.
Why are you doing that?
Well, I have a number of reasons.
This wasn't just another rap case. This was betrayal that cut so deep it shook an entire city. From drill music's rise to courtroom confessions, this is the story of how a family name turned into a death sentence. The murder that set this entire case in motion happened in January 2020. In the middle of a Jacksonville shopping plaza, a man named Charles "Lil Buck" McCormick Jr. was finishing a job interview. He likely felt hopeful, maybe even relieved, as he walked through the parking lot toward his car. What he didn't know was that he was being hunted. Security footage captured a chilling scene. A black SUV speeding into the lot, doors flinging open, and a masked figure stepping out with a rifle. In seconds, the sound of gunfire echoed through the plaza. Shoppers scattered as bullets ripped through the air. McCormick never stood a chance. A witness later told jurors that when they ran over to check on McCormick, his injuries were too graphic to describe. Half his face was gone, the witness recalled, their voice trembling. Even for a city accustomed to gun violence, this was brutality on another level. From the moment police arrived, they knew this wasn't random. This was a calculated hit, an assassination carried out with precision and confidence. And in Jacksonville, where drill rap rivalries had escalated into full-on warfare, investigators already had a short list of names. To understand why McCormick was targeted, you have to understand Jacksonville's drill scene. In the mid-2000s, drill music had exploded in Chicago, spreading to cities like New York and London. But Jacksonville took it to another level. Young rappers from rival neighborhoods weren't just rapping about the streets, they were naming their victims in songs. They taunted rivals, mocked dead friends, and celebrated murders over hard-hitting beats. Tracks became audio battlefields and every lyric carried consequences. Ksoo quickly became one of the most notorious figures in this scene. Backed by rapper Youngin Ace and his crew, ATK, short for Ace's Top Killers, Ksoo's image was larger than life. His music videos featured guns, gang signs, and masked cameos from associates already known to police. By 2020, Jacksonville's rap war wasn't just entertainment, it was a blood feud. Each new diss song was followed by retaliation. One of the most infamous victims was Adrian "Bibby" Gaynor, a 16-year-old whose name would later appear in multiple Ksoo songs. The message was clear. These weren't just bars, these were confessions set to a beat.
And we'll fight on your ass, boy, you better not play. And we'll catch you broad day and shoot you in your face.
McCormick's murder was believed to be part of this cycle. He was reportedly connected to rival crews, and his killing would escalate tensions to an all-time high. But even in a city used to gang violence, this case stood out for one reason: how methodically it was planned. From the start, Jacksonville detectives knew this case couldn't rely on street rumors. They needed evidence that would hold up under the sharpest cross-examination. So they turned to technology. Specialists reconstructed the crime scene using 3D laser modeling. They studied every angle of the footage, analyzing the shooter's stride, height, and build. 2 other men suspected of involvement were ruled out entirely. Ksoo wasn't. Investigators then examined a black SUV found abandoned near the scene. Inside was a rifle, clothing, and gloves. DNA on the t-shirt matched Ksoo, and his fingerprints were on the rifle's magazine. Cell tower data placed his phone near the plaza at the exact time of the shooting. The message from law enforcement was clear. They weren't just chasing rumors. They were building an airtight case, piece by piece. But even with the science pointing at Ksoo, prosecutors needed more than forensics to lock this in. What they got next was even stronger. A human voice willing to testify. And when that voice spoke, it wouldn't just strengthen the prosecution's narrative, it would flip the story upside down. Because the next witness wasn't just a stranger or an informant, it was someone Ksoo once trusted with his life. Enter Dominique Buddha Barner, the getaway driver. Facing multiple murder charges, Buddha was looking at dying behind bars. So he made a choice, talk or rot. In exchange for a plea deal of 20 years, Buddha told prosecutors everything. He explained how they stalked McCormick, revealing a chilling detail. They found his address on a public court website. That's right. An ordinary traffic ticket exposed his home address. Buddha said they followed McCormick's car from his house to the plaza. They waited. When he stepped out, Ksoo allegedly jumped from the SUV and opened fire. Afterward, the crew fled, ditching the car and scrambling for cover. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a military-style operation carried out with planning and precision. But even Buddha's betrayal wasn't the biggest shock of the trial. That came when a man with the same last name as the defendant took the witness stand. When Abdul Blue Robinson Sr. walked into the courtroom, all eyes were on him. Known in Jacksonville as a man with a serious reputation, Blue wasn't a stranger to street life. He'd been in and out of trouble for years. He wasn't just Ksoo's father, he was one of his earliest influences. Now, he was about to testify against his own son. Facing a potential 60-year sentence for helping the shooters escape, Blue struck a plea deal. In exchange for his testimony, prosecutors agreed to cap his sentence at 20 years. With time served, he could be home in a year. On the stand, Blue spoke about his health, heart failure, diabetes, kidney problems, and about his younger children. He said they begged him to come home, to take them to football games, fishing trips, and father-daughter dances. The courtroom was silent as he described their pleas. Then came the bombshell. When asked if he recognized the shooter in the video, Blue's voice wavered. "Yes," he said. "That's my son."
Now, when you watched that video of the murder of Charles McCormick, did you recognize the shooter?
Yes, sir.
Who was the shooter in that video?
Hakeem Robinson.
Your son, Hakeem Robinson.
Yes, sir.
The moment sent shockwaves through the courtroom. For many watching, it was the ultimate betrayal, a father choosing his freedom over his child's life. For others, it was proof of how broken the street code really is. The courtroom fell silent when Abdul Blue Robinson, Ksoo's father, took the stand. This wasn't a random witness. This was the man who raised Ksoo, molded his image, and introduced him to the streets of Jacksonville. Blue wasn't just a parent, he was a figure with his own reputation in the city's underworld. Now, that same man was about to testify against his son. Facing 60 years in prison for helping his son and others escape after the murder, Blue struck a plea deal that reduced his potential sentence to just over 6 years. The price? Testifying in open court against his own blood. As he spoke, Blue painted himself as a father desperate to change his life, sharing stories of his younger children begging for him to come home, of football games missed, of dances he never attended. He detailed his failing health, kidney failure, heart issues, and diabetes.
I got some health issues. I got 2 6-year-olds and an 8-year-old daughter. And, when my 8-year-old daughter asked me when I'm gonna come take her to the daddy-daughter dance.
Building a picture of a man trying to escape a lifetime of bad choices. But that vulnerability didn't soften the blow. Blue looked directly at his son and gave the jury what prosecutors needed. That's him. That's my son in that video. It was a single sentence that echoed louder than any piece of forensic evidence. The man who raised Ksoo was now the state's star witness, shattering years of loyalty and family bonds in one breath. For those watching, this moment was chilling. Blue wasn't just flipping, he was rewriting their entire family history. He had once given Ksoo the blueprint for street life, the image of being a gangster, and now he was dismantling it all to save himself. Loyalty, in that instant, became just another word. Blue's testimony wasn't about courage or justice, it was about survival. And in this case, survival meant sacrificing his own son's freedom. The streets had taught Ksoo that betrayal comes from your enemies. This trial proved it could just as easily come from the people who raised you. This case struck a nerve nationwide because it shattered one of the street's most sacred myths: loyalty. For decades, the code of silence, no snitching, was treated as law. To break it was to mark yourself for death or exile. But in this courtroom, loyalty meant nothing. A father turned on his son, a driver flipped on his crew, and the cycle of retaliation that these rappers once glorified now had them shackled in orange jumpsuits. Some people online argued Blue had no choice. He was sick, he had young kids waiting at home, but others saw hypocrisy. Blue helped create the environment his son grew up in, and when things turned deadly, he abandoned him. The streets demand loyalty, but this trial showed loyalty only lasts until survival is on the line. The Ksoo trial feels less like a criminal case and more like a grim cautionary tale. Once celebrated in Jacksonville's drill scene, Ksoo now sits in a courtroom with 2 murder charges stacked against him, and the people closest to him, the getaway driver and his own father, have turned state witnesses. This isn't just betrayal, it's proof that when the stakes are high enough, loyalty collapses under pressure. Butter, the driver, secured 20 years in exchange for testifying. Blue, the father, slashed a potential 60-year sentence down to about 6. They saved themselves, but at what cost? Ksoo, facing a lifetime behind bars, has become a symbol of how quickly relationships disintegrate once the courtroom lights turn on. Those who once claimed family over everything were the first to take deals. This isn't unique to Jacksonville, it's a pattern seen across America's streets. The drill scene glamorizes beefs and retaliation, but rarely shows the fallout: broken families, betrayed friendships, and lives spent in prison cells. Ksoo's own music once mocked his rivals, but his lyrics now play like a confession tape, with prosecutors using his words as ammunition. The message is simple but sobering. The streets don't create legends, they create tragedies. What once seemed like loyalty and brotherhood has turned into self-preservation. Every person in this case, Ksoo, his father, his friends, has paid a heavy price. And in the end, there are no winners. When the verdict was read, it felt like the end of an era. Ksoo, once a rising star in drill rap, will likely spend the rest of his life in a cell. His father, a man who once gave him his reputation, will walk free sooner than his son. The getaway driver who thought he was saving himself will still be middle-aged when he's finally released, if he survives prison. This wasn't just another rap trial. It was a reflection of a city caught in a cycle of violence, where diss tracks become death sentences and family bonds crumble under legal pressure. The world is left asking, if even blood can't hold loyalty, what can?